Greetings, Jedi traders. David here of TradingFibs.com to bring you the end of the week daily trend for week 23, June 10th, 2016. As always, please seek financial advice when trading with your money, as these videos are for educational purposes only. Support your knowledge in the market. See what's going through my head on any given day. Always make sure you have a solid trading plan and always manage your stop when placing a trade. Well, let's take a look at the econ data for today. It was consumer sentiment, rig count, and treasury budget. Lackluster week, guys. Very low week as price action heading into next week. FOMC. Looking at the Brexit vote on the week after, contract rollover on Thursday, split contract made just for some weak trading this week, but managing to find a trend here and there. So today, Friday, trading on a modified T3 strategy, just trying it out. So went with the setup on the sim platform here. For a total of 191 ticks on this modified strategy on the three indices. We'll take a look at crude here in a moment. It was trend number 4 of the day on setup number 2. There it was. T3 moving averages crossing over to the downside and sell signal there. And then one contract off and running down to the crossover. Again, the modified version to our strategy here, just instead of the 50 crossing the 144, it's the 13 crossing the 50 EMA, but observing that 144, looking for that earlier entry. So very nice move, a total of 3 setups, I believe it was. Almost 3 setups per index today. Again, totaling up about 191 ticks. Not bad. For the week, finishing up week 23, 20 setups, 301 ticks across the board. Again, NQ with the biggest punch of the bunch. All right, let's take a look at the AD line as price action on the AD line. As we saw, nothing really heavy on the econ data as we head into next week. But it was contract rollover. Starting yesterday and into today, volume in today's price action returning into the September contract. AD line starting from the pivot to the upside, pushing down. We're giving a little bit of brief upside pre-Euro, and then for the most part to the downside with just a slight lift towards the end. Let's take a look at the 5-minute charts as price action across the board here. Taking a look at the crude to the downside here on price action as she managed to push down to the average low. Price action on the crude, again, coming off the highs as we've seen pushing up this week. Not much of a range bound for the majority of the first couple hours here. Here you can see the 25-minute open range. Once she was able to break through and underneath, that was the move of the session. Again, looking at both all around, not just the crude here, but 25-minute open range. Let me come down here. There was our 25-minute, actually limited on the YM, popping to the upside, getting up here almost to the average high, and then finishing up pretty much near today's open. Again, taking a look at the NQ down in the lower right-hand corner. Again, here we had, it was the NQ that was much more range-bound as we saw a 25-minute open range. It was all hovering around the Globex low here, both on the ES and the NQ, and then finally pushing down today's low and pushing right back up into the 25-minute open range, just slightly under today's open. Let's jump right into the daily trend. As we start looking at the crude here, again, we mentioned the crude again having that nice move to the downside. 50 underneath the 144 indicating the technical momentum trend, and there it was. T3 moving averages, again, the first couple hours was chopped inside that range, and they're all you needed. That's right, that was the move on the crude. Sell signal on how many charts? Count them up. 1, 2, 3, 4. To the downside, pullback, and one other entry to the downside, and that pretty much finished up the session towards the crude close. So nice technical trend on the move. Just need to be a little bit patient and wait for that setup. Taking a look at the YM today, price action on the YM. Again, a little bit challenging as volume was, who knows, end of the week, looking at contract rollover as we head into next week. But either way, patience pays off, and there it was. That was the setup of the session. Here we saw 4 moving averages to the downside, 3 to 4, at least 1, 2, and 3. 20 tick count up. There it is to the downside, 50 below the 144, keeping you in the trend. Price action lifts back up. No move here, as price action took a while to catch up on the chart. So really, there was one and could call the second move here, sell signal. Price action came down here. That was around top of the hour, lunchtime, 12 o'clock. Price action broke underneath the 144, putting you in the trade to the short for a couple scalp ticks. Let's pull back a little bit. Remember that I said that early morning action to the upside, but again, 2 charts, delayed entry would have kept me out as well. That was first 30 minutes. There it was, price action. Again, overnight action. I meant to show you there. Hang on, let's go back here for a second. I meant to pull up the overnight. There it was, overnight action. Let's pull that image up. There we go. Overnight action was pretty much to the downside, as we saw for the majority. 4 charts in the red all the way down, and was hoping again, is a whole difference between what happens overnight and sometimes what happens during the day session. Clearly, no indicator of what happens for Globex is in any way means of where the day session will head. But anyway, being that it was down, as we see, price action was to the downside. Let's go ahead and open up that YM a little bit, as we could see the YM here, price action to the downside overnight. Re-entry, downside, downside, all 4 charts in the red. Pop back up, and then eventually bringing it back down. So no fun there. But finding a small pocket towards the afternoon session. Patience, patience, patience. Let's jump into the NQ. Again, same story. Overnight session, Globex downside. Price action chop for the majority of the mid-session. No real major move. As we can see, T3 moving averages were holding above the T350. Finally breaking through. That was the move of the session, as we just saw on the YM as well. There it was. To the downside, all 4 charts in the red. 50 below the 144. That's all it took. No magic there. Taking a look at the ES, same picture. Again, had an earlier entry towards the right on post-European close. If we draw back just slightly here, again, overnight session, Globex pushing down to the Globex low, lift, a little bit of chop, and then price action to the downside after a 2-bar pullback. So that's not a bad entry there on the ES, as she pushed down below the T350, giving us 3 charts in the red, pullback to the 50 and back down. So a couple good entries mid-session. Technical momentum, there it is, 50 below the 144. And it was the gold. Let's take a look at the gold today. Actually, gold had a really nice move. Buy signal upside on almost 2.5 charts. It was the pullback on 3 charts that put you back. That's a soft pullback there. 2 indecision bars on the Heikin Ashi and to the upside. Pull down, pull back, and there it was. Sell signal to the downside. Again, not one of the better setups that I would be looking for. And right there, back to the upside. Again, all this not looking like any gold standard setup, but again, nice to see a trend move, at least in the early part of the session. So, looking at and modified, as we said today, what would that look like? Well, let's take a look at the 3 indices. Look at the best trend. Again, if we go back and take a look at the daily trend here for a moment, let's take a look at the ES here. Again, price action to the downside, sell signal here at 1:34 Eastern Standard Time. We do have the same setup here also, but it's some of the earlier entries during the day. So here we have on top the T3 moving averages in downside. We have the 13 and the 50. We end up getting sometimes some more setups. So where does it pay off, or what is it at least we're looking at? Well, we're looking at moves. Let's go ahead and move the chart here. We're looking at moves like this. That if we go back and let's take a look at the daily trend, we're looking at these kinds of moves right here that we see Heikin Ashi's bars in trend and say, well, that's not exactly the golden standard setup. So is there a way I can enter on that? Well, that move at around 10:04 was not possible, but here it was on the T3 moving averages crossing in sync with the 13 crossing the 50. So very nice move to the upside. Gave us those 191 ticks. So 4 setups where you would have ended up with only 2 setups on the other chart. So we'll be looking at that next week. But again, across the board, very nice moves on this modified chart here. We'll see how it plays out in all types of session, chop and long trending. But so far, not a bad strategy. All right, let's jump into the fib projections. Take a look. Do we hit any of those fib projection levels? Oh, yes. Best of the best. YM both upside and downside. Both targets hit. ES target low, 2084.50 and 52.50 to the downside on the NQ. So not bad for the week. Take a look at the daily gaps. We closed out that daily gap this week on the YM here on Thursday's session. 17,822 now closed, represented by the dash line, but we went ahead and left an open gap upside 945, so eventually we'll come back and grab that. That's your YM for you. Take a look at the NQ. We went ahead and closed the gap here today, 48.75 downside, so we'll go ahead and close that out for the week, but leaving Thursday's 85.75 upside, as well on the ES up here at 11.25, as well as today 97.25. So two open gaps, but we are chasing that 77.25 downside, as well as the remaining three open gaps to the downside all the way down. That's right, we got them all the way down to 1860.75, as for the last almost 2 months we've been in this rally to the upside. Taking a look at the crude, finishing off the day, we got a new open gap, so we go to the low of the session from Thursday, and we got ourselves a new open gap there. We'll go ahead and fix that for next week's session, but eventually crude, as she chases downside to support at the fib extension here at 47.97, but we got a nice open gap down here at 46.43 before we go up and capture anything higher, such as 55.41. So what is the probability that we go get those? Well, got to keep in mind volume profile. We got fib project 600-day VPOX as the YM holding her here at 17,805. Take a look at the NQ. I believe our VPOC is, there it is, 42.90, and ES migrating downside to that 600 VPOC today, 2093.50. Now, how do these play out? Well, intraday value area highs, value area lows, and VPOCs representing price action where it's happiest can be used as a range as well, looking for moves outside the range, and always eventually price action does migrate back into those value areas. So it can be used as an intraday, just an additional intraday market internal. However, based on the longer term, you know that a 600-day VPOC over the last 600 days, there is a magnet where price action migrates to, and knowing where that number is daily can be a level that price action may just simply fade off of and have serious resistance there and not push price action any further. So knowing that the crude continues to move down now and close out some former VPOCs, we do have a we have a 600-day VPOC down here at 45.70. So you take the combination of the open VPOC, take the combination of the daily gaps, which are downside down here, 46.43, and then we jump over and we take a look at the daily pick, a daily big pick, which is right over here on the crude. As crude continues to move downside here, we look at the 50 EMA, which was the first level of support. We broke that. We now look to 48.48. So each level of support to the downside. So 48.48, we have 45.33, we have 42.23, all these levels of support. But again, nothing to say that we're eventually going to come down and grab the 50 and the 200. We look to each level as a line of support. So 144 here at 48.48 would be the first level of support, as we are in a continued uptrend, even though we are still in a pullback here. Uptrend 50 is above the 144. Fib extension to the upside, 55.75. So let me clarify again. So crude, where is crude headed? I can't tell you on any given day where it's headed. All I can tell you is as long as we're in a pullback here, each level of support. You want to look to the 144 EMA on a 4-hour chart first. You want to check where your VPOCs are, 600-day VPOC, which is all the way down to 45.70. You want to make sure your daily gaps, which is 46.43, which is below that. That would, to me, be the bottom line as we go back here to the, keep moving the daily trend there. There we go. The 50 EMA is 45.30. So big zone here of levels to keep in mind that price action may just migrate to. There's that open gap there, so slightly above. So we'll look for the 144, look to the open gaps, look to the 600-day VPOC, and then to the 50 and the 200 period moving averages. Good volume here in the last week. All right, let's wrap this up with the last three indices as price action. Again, finding support at the 50 EMA today. little bit shy there. ES not grabbing that 50 MA. Good volume across the board for the week, kind of low, but again, now contract moving into the September, but we found that 50 MA bounce. So that move that we saw to the downside. So what am I talking about? Well, let's go back to that daily trend. Let's even look at that modified chart. That move to the downside, that was moving towards that 50 period moving average, especially on the YM and the NQ. So you keep that in mind as price action bounced on. That's exactly what we did, is we just completely bailed as price action bounced to the back to the upside. So we are still in an upward trend, as the 50 is still about the 144, but we do now have a pullback. Look for the resistance now back up to the upside to the 50 EMA on a 4-hour chart. Same picture on the ES as price action finds support here at the 144. Watch the 50 EMA to continue to be support. Once, if we break these levels, we want to look downside back to the daily gaps. We want to see if we're going to be closing out any of those levels. 77.25, 52.75 would be some levels downside as well. If we get all the way down there, that might be a little bit concerning, as price action can fall further. All right, heading into next week, we'll go over in the market outlook over the weekend. But again, as we look ahead, price action on the econ data. Again, we've mentioned pre-Brexit in the 23rd. Looking to next week, we have FOMC on a meeting begins on Tuesday. So look for the Red Star events on Wednesday. That's going to be a huge day. And finishing up the week with some more housing data and Philly Fed. All right, that is a wrap for week 23. That concludes an insight for the daily trend for week 23, June 10th. Jumping ahead here, June 10, 2016. Feel free to stop by at tradingfibs.com or any of my social media outlets to obtain more information. My trading mantra of one simple strategy: any market, any chart, any time frame will keep you disciplined. You can find me every day on Twitter at TradingFibs. As always, I leave the crystal ball to the experts. I only trade what's in front of me and on my charts. And as always, leave your bias at the door when trading. Always be ready in both directions intraday. If you're looking for anything longer term, make sure you check out my futures, ETF, and market cap leaders weekend post, where I include a variety of technical momentum outlooks on a variety from futures, ETFs, market cap leaders, industrials, FX pairs, etc. Go ahead and click on the link here for the weekly supplemental technical momentum outlook. Come up with a 100-page supplemental newsletter with charts to indicate current trends and a supplemental video with a little bit more insight. Have yourselves a Blue Zone weekend, everybody. Good day, good night, and good trading.